Thanks for checking out the Brad and John Show podcast. This segment of the show is brought to you by John Combest's book, Stalking, Harassment, Internet Trolling, A Guide to Recovering and Rebuilding After Online Attacks. It's a great reference if you've ever been the unfortunate target of a social media attack. It's available on Amazon. Just search John Combest. That's C-O-M-B-E-S-T, John Combest, and the book will show up in your search results. Now it's time for another segment of the Brad and John Show. Can you handle it?
It's me, Eggburt once again. I'm the new owner of this station. I went out and hired the best talk radio consultant, Jeff Allen from News Talk STL, and told him to hire the worst talent he could find. Jeff did exactly as I told him. Ladies and gentlemen, here are Brad and John.
John, I'm sort of surprised you haven't brought this up because this is your old stomping ground. There's a story on the front of the KSDK webpage about Bayer.
No way. What is it?
Bayer responds to questions about pesticide immunity legislation, glyphosate safety.
Glyphosate, yeah.
Missouri,
AKA Roundup.
Missouri is now...
I haven't seen it. I'm going to kill the KSDK website because it's one of those that when you open it up, it plays 14 concurrent videos and 8 suggestions to get you to download their damn app. So I'll check it out when we're not on the air. But yeah, I mean, long running, I mean, Bayer is fighting wars on many fronts, Brad, and it's very challenging for them. And they're an important part of St. Louis economy. They might not be an important part of culture anymore after they were purchased by the Germans, but they are an important part of the economy, and they're facing some very hard times.
The subhead is Missouri is now one of 3 states where bills to shield pesticide makers from lawsuits have been filed this year alone. So,
you know what? I will maybe I'll add that link after we get off the air. I want to give you my full attention, Brad, and then I'll add that after we get off the air.
But John, I'm not a great news guy. I mean, I'm just giving news tips out for $1 a holler. You know what I mean? Why would everything I say be of any credibility?
I know. And why would you go to a website that does it for free every day for 22 plus years
Right.
and listen to a guy that doesn't go around, hey, everybody. Hey, you know what my claim to fame is, Brad?
I know a few, but go ahead.
You know a few. One of them is I wanted to be the first blogger that doesn't go around telling everybody about their blog. We've all worked with somebody that started a blog, and usually it goes like this: Hey, I'm gonna start a blog, and I'm gonna write about pizza, and I'm gonna do a post every day this year. That's the ticket. Yeah, check it out. And then 10 days later, Billie'sPizzaBlog.com suddenly hasn't been updated. Hey guys, I've got a lot going on. Anyway, my claim to fame is, Brad, I wanted to be the first blogger that doesn't meet people and say, hey, guess what? I do a blog. You see it on my blog? Go to my blog. Don't go to my blog. If you don't already go to my blog and know about my blog, I don't care. It says more about you than it says about me.
Well, what you're also describing podcasters where, hey, I'm going to do a podcast and like we're going to do 3 a week. And then the first week there's 3, and the second week there's 2, and the third week there's 1, and the fourth week there's none.
Unbelievable. And Brad, last night I had a conversation with a friend about this because they said something about Michael Posner. You own a pop radio station, Brad. You know Michael Posner, the guy, I took a pill in Ibiza to show Avicii that I was cool. You know him?
Yeah, and one of the interesting names that has never really made a huge hit or it's the huge presence in like the top 40 world, but he's like one of these big people that everybody knows, Michael Posner, right?
Oh yeah. So he did an interview with Gary Vaynerchuk, and they were like talking out loud, and Michael Posner's like, yeah, well, I'm gonna do a weekly podcast. I think I could. At first, he said like 3 days a week, and then Gary Vee's like, don't think that's realistic. And then Michael Posner's like, well, I can definitely do a podcast a week. Now, Brad, there's no resolution here to the story because I didn't care enough to look up whether or not Michael Posner actually does a weekly podcast. But I remember thinking the likelihood that anybody sits down and does one thing consistently every week and produces a work output is next to none.
Well, the Gary Vee thing, was Gary essentially being like, oh, you're never going to do that? Was he being sort of dismissive?
No, Gary Vee was trying to be realistic because Gary Vee was talking about, and for folks who don't know, Gary Vaynerchuk is a guy that started selling wine. His family owned an alcohol company, and so Gary started selling wine online like 20 years ago and became a guru for online marketing and sales and such. Is that a fair way to describe him, Brad?
Yeah, and very interesting past to Jewish family from Russia. His parents immigrated.
They're immigrants.
Yeah, he came to the United States and talking about, here we go. I'm not to sidetrack you, but just interject the American success story. His parents came over to the United States. I think he was like 3 or 4 or 5, very young, and came to the United States. And his dad did practically anything to make money, and he took a job as a janitor at a liquor store in New York City, and essentially worked his way up to manager of the place. Talking about hard work, and then ultimately started his own store. And Gary comes along way back when the internet, not the internet, but when YouTube is like first getting off the ground, and he does a daily video on YouTube where he does wine tasting. And it got to be a huge success, but he did it every damn day. Every day he did it for like a long time. I mean, like years, wasn't it?
Yeah, it was years. And what I like about the Gary Vee story, and there's folks listening to this who have thought about doing some sort of online enterprise or putting their thoughts out there or whatever. And just from doing my website since 2001, Brad, I can't tell you the number of people, you see this all the time, people who claim that they're going to do a podcast or a YouTube channel or whatever. And the challenge that they run into is they toil, Brad. That's a word you used earlier in the show. They toil, and they don't get immediate approval from the people they think should applaud them, and that they think people should tell them, oh my God, your podcast is so great, I listen all the time. They're going to put a podcast out there every day for weeks and get crickets, and guess what? They're not getting the love and approval they feel like they deserve, so they quit. What does that make them, Brad? Quitters. And they don't deserve success, and they deserve to fail, and they deserve to bounce from enterprise to enterprise with failed, uncompleted idea, and they deserve to fall by the wayside of losers who never actually execute on what they say they're going to execute on.
Boy, John's being tough this morning. This is
it's annoying, Brad, because then they'll find somebody else. I did a really good YouTube channel for a while, but all the people that were supposed to promote it didn't promote it. Okay. I don't know why I keep failing and everything.
Okay, you're giving me an entree into something that I saw yesterday that I was absolutely positively fascinated by, and I did a deep dive on it, okay?
Okay.
You know who Gene Simmons is? Kiss, right?
I thought you were going to say Gene Frederick.
No, Gene Simmons. You know who Gene Simmons is, right? You know where Gene Simmons was born?
No idea.
Israel.
Oh, wow, okay.
He was born in a very poor area of Israel. And I believe the story is he's the only child of his mother and his father. His father had a couple other kids, I think, as a previous marriage. And apparently his mother and father split up, and his mother took Gene and immigrated to the United States. Came to the United States, got legal access to the United States, ultimately became naturalized citizens, okay? And he came to the United States not speaking English.
No way.
Yeah,
really?
He spoke Hebrew, did not speak any English. Talked about he lived in a very poor area. And the thing that caught my attention was I saw this video of him, and I love biographies. I love biographies because just like you said, you're talking about that people, they give up, and they, the people that you look at today as extremely successful, if you go back and look at their life, 9 out of 10 times their life is a train wreck. They did this, they filed bankruptcy. They did this, they were in a terrible car accident and had a good business going, and we're in a terrible car accident. They were in a hospital for two months and their business went under. Or they built a successful restaurant and the highway department came through and eminent domain their restaurant and tore it down. They had to start over. Okay, Gene Simmons is doing this interview where what he's saying, I came to the United States. I didn't know English. I was amazed at this country. We came to New York. He says, as a young boy, I still can remember walking down streets in New York and looking at these skyscrapers. He says, I'm a kid that grew up in a poor neighborhood where there was no building that was taller than 1 story. And he looks right at the camera and says, I can tell you the secret to success. You come to the United States, you learn English, and you get rid of your accent. Get rid of your accent. You can do it. He says, I did it. Get rid of your accent. And you assimilate into this country, and anything is possible. And I think I said, yes, where is this guy?
Yeah. And talk about language that should get him canceled, Brad.
But see, that's the whole point. I'm thinking to myself, and once again, he chronicles what he did with his life. Okay, was he always a success? he talks about, and see, the interesting thing, once I saw this video, I go like, okay, I'm doing my deep dive. So I start doing Gene Simmons searches on the internet, and the Wikipedia page is really good. They have a lot of stuff, talks about he was in this band, and this band, and this band, and this band, this band, and before he even did that, he did all these odd jobs. He was, it's to the point where we run in this very station, there's a little fill that we use, it's a 60-second fill that we use that talks about the history of Sylvester Stallone. And once again, you listen to this, you think to myself, okay, why in the world would, why didn't the guy just crawl into a hole and die somewhere? Because he had this terrible life. He was born with birth defects. Do you know that's part of the reason?
Yeah, he was delivered by forceps.
Right, and that's part of the reason why he has that little twitch, and so he talks the way he does, because supposedly he had a terrible, damage to his face and his jaw when he was born, and his wife left him, and he sold his dog, all sorts of crazy, weird stuff. And talks about how when he was down and out, he's sitting in a bar and he's watching some fight in a bar on a TV set, and he essentially over the next 3 or 4 days writes Rocky, and then goes to the studios, and a lot of studios looked at it and they go, okay, right, we'll option this, but he said, no, the only way you get is if I get the star in the movie. Hey, nobody knows who you are. Who are you? Nobody's heard of Sylvester Stallone. You're this weird-looking Italian dude, got sort of a strange voice. We're not doing it. And finally, he got a studio that said, okay, we'll take a chance on you. Now, the interesting thing was, if he would come to John Combest, John would have said, Sylvester Stallone, you don't have any track record. You've never done a movie before. Get the hell out of my office.
That's right. Now, he would have been more successful, Brad, if he had sent one direct mail piece and then complained that the studios weren't giving him enough attention.
Boy, that's a dig at Brad, isn't it? I love it.
It's not a dig, Brad. It's just a difference of opinion, Brad.
Well, see.
And then you know what he could say? He could say, well, no, not only did I send them one piece of direct mail that ended up in the trash, I sent them 2. Can you believe they didn't choose me? I sent them a whopping 2 direct mail pieces. I didn't follow up with an in-person visit. I didn't call them. I didn't have a mutual friend reach out and say, hey, Brad. Well, anyway, that's what Stallone should have done, though, Brad. 2 direct mail pieces and then call it quits.
John's being tough guy on me.
We're going to, you know what? I feel like we're at an imaginary sales meeting, like with Shelley Barr, and then they bring in the jerk that does the new morning show since November, and then he comes in and says, direct mail, what do you guys know about anything?
Well, but
I feel like I'm playing the villain in this. Brad.
No, you're not playing the villain. The interesting thing is that what you're saying is that I'm the guy that's saying, like, hey, there is no, if you go to a speech, and like, here, a perfect example. Last night, I'm driving around and I'm listening to Dave Ramsey. Okay, Dave Ramsey is interesting because the fact now he's touting the fact that there are states, and I believe he said one of them is South Carolina, that is mandating financial literacy in the schools. And Dave Ramsey is selling his course. He's got some course aimed at high school kids.
That's awesome.
Yeah, once again, he's teaching. I agree with you. I agree with 100%. They're teaching financial literacy. But the problem I have with Dave Ramsey is there's only one way of doing things, and that's the Dave Ramsey way. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
If you
agree.
If you deviate 1 degree from the Dave Ramsey way, and if you sometimes people will call in and he'll just fillet them. He'll
eviscerate them.
Excoriate them. Like, well, I can't believe you did that. That was stupid. And I'm going like, okay, I'm the kind of person that if someone comes to me and they want my advice and they tell me what they're doing, I'm not going to say, that's the stupidest thing in the world. Like, if I tell somebody that I sent out 2 direct mail pieces, I would never say, well, I can't believe you only sent out 2 direct mail pieces. You didn't go door knock. You didn't go knocking people's doors.
I get you. And Brett, now let's remember too, as we wind the show down, I have never once in my life sent a pitch for radio advertising to anybody. You have forgotten more in 3 minutes about radio advertising than I'll ever know. I'm just a guy that drives around and listens and gets a mail out of the mailbox and throws it directly in the trash. Like, so I don't know about, and if somebody comes up to me and says, boy, have I got a deal for you, pal, only $1 a holler. I say, clearly, if this guy had a better product, he wouldn't be charging me $1. I'm going to go to the guy that's charging me $100 because there's social proof. And other people say, oh, wow, I should definitely get I want to buy the Cadillac. I don't want to buy the guy selling a jalopy at the corner of, Bell Fountain and Trampy, Brad.
You know, it's interesting. And once again, just the other day, I was watching this video of this guy. I watch all these car videos, and it's so funny what you're saying is because of the fact there are certain cars, Audi, the car manufacturer, Audi Volkswagen, has all these different models. You know, they sell Audis, they sell Volkswagens, and they sell all these different things. And what's interesting is there are certain cars in their lineup that are the same car but with different badgings. In other words, this one's a Bentley, but yes, this one's an Audi, and it's the same damn car.
But people will pay up for it because they assume it's a better value.
Up for it twice as much. The guy was giving the example of the Bentley model, which is essentially the same thing. I can't remember what it is. It's like their SUV model. It's the same thing as a Volkswagen Atlas. And he goes and shows it's got the same engine, it's got this, it's got that. And it pretty much, as a matter of fact, the interesting part of it was he points out where there are things that the Volkswagen Atlas has that the Bentley doesn't. The Volkswagen Atlas has more options than the Bentley, but yet the Bentley is $200,000 and the Volkswagen is $100,000.
Because everybody wants to say they drive a Bentley, Brad.
Right, and the part of it is, and he made the point, he says, if you show up at your local garage with a Bentley, nobody wants to work on it because I'm not going to touch that. But if you show up at your garage with a Volkswagen, oh yeah, bring it in, we can take care of that. You know, it's the same damn car.
That's the same reason why girls that are 10s don't get hit on the same that girls that are 6s, because everybody thinks, well, I can handle a 6, she won't reject me. But a 10 might reject me. That's why you should go for the 9s and 10s and not the 6s, Brad.
I've ever told you my Larry Mondello story?
No, who's that?
You've never heard my Larry Mondello story. Too late right now because you brought this up because you...
Okay, can we talk about Larry Mondello tomorrow? Because I do want to hear it.
Do you know who Larry Mondello... Well, there's two versions of Larry Mondello.
I know who Walter Mondale is, but not Larry Mondello.
Go back and watch the old Leave It to Beaver series,
Oh, okay.
Larry Mondello is Beaver's chubby, whiny friend. Well, Beaver, he's...
I see. Okay.
And once again, I worked with a guy, a DJ... at the old KSLQ, who took on the name of Larry Mondello because he looked just like Larry Mondello in the TV show of Leave It to Beaver, and he acted like Larry Mondello in the TV show Leave It to Beaver, but yet, when he was with the women, he was not Larry Mondello. And I can tell you, and to the point where I have told this story in sales meetings, because what you just said is so important. I know you said it sort of in jest. Well, you know, the guys never hit the guys never hit on the women who are 10s. They hit on the women that are 6s.
It's true.
Because you know why? They don't want the rejection.
You're exactly right. And if you cannot face direct rejection, first of all, you're not a man. And secondly, you will have no reward.
Yes. And third, if you do direct mail, nobody's going to pay attention to you.
That's right. And fourth, Brad, don't be too hard on the Beaver tonight.
Hey, do me one favor. We'll talk about this tomorrow. I'll put on the list of things to talk about
I'm looking
tomorrow.
them up right now.
Look up Larry Mondello.
I'm answering it right now. See you guys tomorrow.
Thanks for checking out the Brad and John Show podcast. This segment of the show is brought to you by John Combest's book, Stalking, Harassment, Internet Trolling, A Guide to Recovering and Rebuilding After Online Attacks. It's a great reference if you've ever been the unfortunate target of a social media attack. It's available on Amazon. Just search John Combest. That's Combest, John Combest, and the book will show up in your search results. Now it's time for another segment of the Brad and John Show. Can you handle it?